All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 30th edition of the Microsoft 365 Meetup for Government community group. I'm very excited today to have a couple of great presenters with Roland White and Ruki Collier, who will be talking about Power BI. So I know for those of you who may have had technical difficulties joining the session, apologies. We'll be posting this recording for everyone's review on our YouTube channel. And for those who were able to join us, thank you so much for your patience. So in the interest of time, I won't get into any other administrative items, but Roland, if you want to start off, thank you so much for presenting and look forward to seeing what you have.
Sounds good. I am working to share my screen now. Okay, can you see my presentation? Fantastic.
Yep, you should be good.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Really want to talk about unleashing Power BI, but first, let me introduce myself. My name is Roland White, and I'm a senior engineer at Planet Technologies. I've been working in the SharePoint arena since about 2007, but now I like to consider myself a productivity solutions developer. And what I mean by that is I use tools such as SharePoint Online, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI. And I use those to collect and manage data to automate and streamline work processes. If you're wondering how Power BI fits into this, I got into Power BI on my own, really through my love of sports analytics. I've had a deep love for baseball and hockey ever since I was young, and I probably spent more time looking at the backs of baseball cards than I did on the players on the front. And as I got introduced to Power BI, I found that I was able to pull data from multiple data sources, mash those sources together, and create some really awesome reports that help me evaluate past performance of teams and players. And I use that to predict future performance. My nephews have various fantasy sports leagues, and I use that information to dominate in their leagues. So that's really how I got into it. Where we are today, this was really inspired because we've had a number of customers, colleagues that have reached out and said, you know, we have these people, these folks that they want to start using Power BI. Some of them are starting to. The Power Desktop tool is now in the wild. How do we help them become successful with that? So that's really where this all came about. And similar to my story, like I said, people start using the Power BI Desktop tool, which is an amazing tool if you've never used it. Like I said, I can import data from multiple different data sources. I can use the tool to combine, clean, and transform data and build stunning reports. Best of all, the tool's free. So it's a great way to see what Power BI can do. And like I did with this with myself, I used it for what's considered personal BI. But then there becomes the desire to share what you've done with other people. Or, you know, how do I connect to this data source? Data sources can be tricky, but let's give a best case scenario where you put in a ticket with a help desk and you get a connection string and access to whatever data you're trying to connect to. Good, so you can go from there. So then you've built your report, but then how do I share it? And that's where it gets tricky, because you can save reports from Power BI Desktop as a PBIX file, and that could be saved to a central location, for example, Teams or SharePoint Online. The catch with that is it requires other users to have the Power BI Desktop tool installed. But that PBIX file allows users to see raw data, calculation definitions, and other technical details. And if you're not familiar with the tool, this can be confusing. Then there's the risk of people changing calculations or altering visuals. So that's where the Power BI service comes involved. And from there, we can publish reports to places where users can view analytics from their computer or mobile device. Now, when we start to talk about the Power BI service, we get additional complexities in licenses and workspaces, those kind of things. Now, did I lose you already? Because what I want to get at here with this talk is really the bigger effort to empower creators and consumers with the direction, data, and support they need to get the most out of Power BI. And so what I've really come up with is 8 different ways to help make your Power BI deployment a success. Now, where I like to start is whether you're getting started with Power BI, you're in the middle of a Power BI deployment, or let's say you've already rolled out Power BI to organization, I think it's good to stop and take note of where you currently are and where you're trying to get to with Power BI. Because let's be honest, the Power BI desktop tool is free, but the Power BI service isn't free. Also, organizations don't have unlimited money, so you want to make sure you're getting everything out of it. To me, a big part about getting ready to use and get the most out of Power BI is to make sure that your data landscape is ready. I also recommend working backwards. And what I mean by that is define your business goals. Think about what stories you're trying to tell with your data. You want to consider, do you have specific dashboards, reports, or analytics in mind that you want to show? Think about what would demonstrate a successful deployment of Power BI and justify the cost. Because I think if we understand the scope of our needs, we can start to think about what resources, in other words, time, money, and people do you need? And I'll be honest, you may need to do some preparation before you can really dive into Power BI. For example, do you have the right data in place? Has this data been verified? Can it be easily accessed, and how is it governed? And I know that's still a lot to think about. So as I continue along, we'll dive more into how we can answer these questions and continue to move forward. I always recommend starting out and taking inventory of what you already have. And this can start with what tools and platforms do users rely on for business intelligence and analytics. By looking at that, it can help understand existing use cases. How are users looking at data? How are they working with it? And how is data being presented? Let's talk about our data sources. So again, I keep saying that the Power BI desktop tool is really powerful. You can connect to over 80 different data sources, both on-premise data sources and cloud services. One of the most popular connections you might make is to databases. You can connect to SQL, Oracle, and MySQL. You can connect to software as a solution connections such as Salesforce, Google Analytics, and GitHub. If you're using Azure services, you may want to connect to and analyze Azure Cost Management. You can also connect to flat files such as Excel or CSV. You can also connect to Power Platform. There's no need to duplicate a connection that already exists and in use. So I can create a data set within Power BI and other people can connect to it with Power BI desktop tool. Think about your existing dashboards, reports, and analytics. There's no direct migration path for reports or dashboards from other platforms to Power BI. So for example, if you're using Crystal Reports or some other tool, if you want to use reports in Power BI, you're going to have to recreate them. And I know this can be frustrating, but it's a good time to evaluate what you already have. Because I've found that in reality, people tend to overestimate the importance of content. Especially if you have content that's a few years old. Now's a great time to review their relevance and importance. And think about the people you have involved already. Consider how many users will be creating content. What technical skills are present in-house? Leave some room for your DBAs, because they'll often be needed for assistance in connecting to your various data sources. Think about how many will be reviewing content. Do you have internal and external publishing needs? And then how will content be distributed or shared? Will users be directed to the Power BI service directly, or will you embed reports in, let's say, SharePoint Online sites? Or do you have reports that need to be viewable by the general public? And then who's going to manage or support it all? And by all, that could be the Power BI tenant, could be various workspaces within Power BI. And then who will help by managing support requests for Power BI? Who will provide training? And then who will contribute and oversee governance policies around data and use of Power BI? When you start to think about different use cases, hopefully it'll help you narrow down training needs as well and help understand the user base more to determine what licensing costs you might need. Something else I find important is your data preparation. It's really important to take the time to validate the quality of your data. You want to look for incorrect data or errors in existing data. As the saying goes, garbage in is equal to garbage out. Think about how your data is structured. You want to ensure that your data schema is solid and data is structured in a consistent manner. This will decrease challenges when performing analysis on the data and greatly improve ease of creating reports and dashboards. At the same time, you often don't need to include everything. When possible, filter out unnecessary columns or rows. If you take the time to work through a data preparation process, that should help you when you have new data points or want to extend existing aggregated data. Now, I often get an objection to this in, is this reasonable? Because this can be a lot of work. I've talked to people that say, you know what, we want to get people using Power BI, but we simply don't have the time or the resources, one, to take inventory about everything that's out there. And I think that's reasonable. Also, we just don't have the resources to get our data cleaned and worked up. Can't we do this in Power BI? And the answer is yes, you can do that within Power BI. Because like I said, Power BI Desktop has powerful functionality for cleansing, filtering, and transforming data. But you're going to have to ask, do you really want your content creators responsible for this task? Because will they do it right and will they do it consistently? This might be a bit of an eye chart, but I wanted to give an example of something that I worked on. Forgive me for its sloppiness, but in working with this data and cleaning it up, I had to add about a dozen steps to get this data to where I wanted to use it. If I had a colleague that was working with the same data and needed to do the same thing, should they have to go through and duplicate this process? I would rather not. I would rather have this put in place so that multiple people could connect to the data to where it's already cleansed and transformed in a way to where they can use it. So think about a situation where you may have organizational data that many different departments, teams, functional units need to work with the data. Asking them all to do it in the same way, especially if they don't know what each other is doing, can be a challenge. So we definitely want to do this in a way that's going to make it more easily reusable for others. I think something else to consider for Power BI deployment is data governance. There's different methods in how you can approach and apply governance. Typically, I think it's easier to establish governance before you have widespread Power BI usage. And we don't want it to be a barrier to people working. In a nutshell, the goal should be to empower user productivity by providing clear and transparent guidance on what actions are permitted, why, and how. Some things to consider with Power BI governance would be to avoid creating data silos or data sprawl. Something that can happen with Power BI is people create workspaces. And think of a workspace as nothing more than a area for a team to build reports and work together. If people are allowed to create workspaces without any kind of guardrails, you tend to have sprawl. And with that, you could have multiple workspaces that are connecting to the same data. So then you run into issues with duplication, but you also may run into issues with poor performance. So if you have duplicate data sets that are running duplicate queries, you don't want to run the risk of database locks or impacting any kind of business operations because multiple queries are running more often than they should. You also want your governance to protect your data. And part of this should be by avoiding poor security practices. You want to make sure that you're helping reduce the risk of data leakage and misuse, and to make sure that any regulatory, industry, and internal data use requirements are followed. So putting together a governance strategy should always be considered. In regards to Power BI, you may want to consider the use of custom visuals, external tools, or branding. For example, if you have a standard for logos, images, or colors to be used, lay that out. If you have any recommendations or requirements around sharing, write that out too. Even internal sharing, just to make sure that data doesn't get into the wrong hands and people only see what they need to see. Some of that can be covered through tenant settings, as well as external sharing can be covered in tenant settings as well. And that way you can eliminate the publish to web capability. In some cases you may need that, but really depends on your organization and how you're using your data that will define that. Think about security and data protection. What's allowed activity with either regulated data or highly sensitive data? You may want to consider the use of personal data gateways and how are those addressed? Or the use of unverified data sources or manually maintained data. Think about any kind of standards you want to set for that. I mentioned workspaces, but think about who can create, what is the process for creating workspaces, and how are they managed? Outline who will manage workspaces. Your governance guide should clearly document all these things and communicate out to your users how this all works. Now, your tenant configuration is important for governance and security. And that starts with your Power BI admin. Now, Microsoft recommends membership of your Power BI administrators to a small number of people. Generally, 2 to 4 is the recommended number. This way, you have enough staffing to cover support requests, as well as vacations, sickness, or employees leaving the organization. Now, when we think about who should be a Power BI admin, it really should be someone who has interest and experience in Power BI, because it's not well suited to an administrator who doesn't have any familiarity with what users might be trying to accomplish. I also recommend documenting your tenant configuration. The reason for this is there's no read-only role for tenant settings. And by documenting, you give transparency to how settings are configured in the tenant. And that will aid in monitoring of governance policies as well. I'm going to show you one of my favorites that often gets overlooked. And I apologize if this becomes a seeing eye chart, but this really gets into the help and support settings for Power BI, where you can replace built-in URLs on the help menu to provide links to training and documentation, how to contact the help desk, where people can go for support, that sort of thing. I find that that really helps the users get a more personal and tailored experience and help drive adoption of Power BI. Along with that, in the tenant settings, again, you'll want to look at workspaces by defining who can create them, how they're used. Export and sharing, this is going to tie right in with your governance on whether external sharing or publish to web is allowed. Again, that's going to allow with your organization security and governance policies. Audit and usage settings is something you should look at as well. And this way you can record actions taken in Power BI, which really can be used to monitor user activity and report usage. Again, I recommend reviewing these settings on a regular basis. Quarterly is generally fine, and it allows you to be able to make sure that you're serving your users, but then you can also include any new settings which may have been released. So we've talked a lot about theory and how do you approach a deployment. We're going to talk about something that's a little bit more near and dear and fun for me, and that's your content development, your content creation. Now, thinking about a life cycle for your content development, you're going to start with your data set and report development. And often this is going to include technical proofs of concept. And I use this to validate any kind of assumptions, address any unknowns, and mitigate risks. And this is where I can demo to people, make sure that what they envision is what I'm trying to deliver. It's also a great way to validate both the accuracy of the information, security of the information, functionality of reports, if I'm using any kind of drill downs or filters, and then performance. Generally, we want reports to refresh at a scheduled time and in a fairly quick manner. So this is a great way to test as you're developing. Now, when it comes to documentation of your content, your reports, my favorite thing to do is to add a separate page in the Power BI report. And this is generally a hidden page within the report. And in this, I'm able to list out design decisions, why something was done the way it was. And that could be because of a business requirement, because of, let's say, a technical limitation, that sort of thing. I can also list out who owns it, who's responsible for it, who's the stakeholder or sponsor of it. Put that in there as well. Any kind of refresh requirements. If the report needs to be refreshed daily at, say, 6 p.m., I put that in there as well. Any kind of business rules, any kind of, quirks or features, I like to put that in there as well. Any security or privacy requirements. The whole idea in mind with the documentation is if I hand this off to a colleague, they understand what I was thinking when I put this all together, where my mind was, and how to either expand on it or troubleshoot it if need be. So let's say my report's all good, ready to deploy it. Think about your communication for this, because I find that this is, important, because if people don't know that the report's out there, where to find it, they probably won't see it. It's the whole build it and they will come kind of paradox. So my preference is after I build a report, it's live, provide people with a link. Where can they find it? If it's in Teams, how can they get to it? If it's on a SharePoint page, where can they get to it? Any associated documentation, whether it be technical documentation or explanations, that sort of thing. Training. People new to Power BI may not understand how to drill down in a report or to navigate through it. You may have documentation along those lines. And then from there, you might want to monitor usage just to make sure, one, that the report is being used, because you may find that a report's not being used. Find out why. Maybe it's not meeting the actual user needs. Could be because requirements were missed or not explained. It could be that reports are slow to render or respond, and you may need to do some tuning to the report. Think about if you're properly filtering data, or if there's too many visuals or interactions between visuals. That can slow down reports a little bit as well. More training may be appropriate. Like I said, some things may not be that intuitive to users, such as drill down, or drill up within the report. And this, when we get to operationalizing, we're talking about keeping the lights on. What do your Power BI admin do in day-to-day? And I find that that's a mix between looking at logs, making sure the service is up and functioning as expected, monitoring service health, and a lot of that can be automated. Through PowerShell, you can run different reports. For example, you can get a list of workspaces, list of objects per workspace, and that can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Extracting the Power BI activity log is something else that you can automate. And I find that's good as well. Microsoft is really great at providing info on service health. If there is an issue with the Power BI service, you can monitor that through the Power BI admin tool. Let's say that there's an outage. They give pretty good updates, clear as to, what root cause is, when the ETA is for resolution. So that way you can help address your users and let them know. And finally, one of the most important is to think about how you will address user support. In most cases, for most applications, support requests will generally go to the help desk. However, most help desks will be generally less experienced with Power BI. So you'll want to think about extended support. And I would recommend this be internal through either a Power BI support team, which could be a mix of your Power BI admin or your super users and power users within your organization. I strongly recommend using internal user groups. Some of the best application of this has been through public teams in Microsoft Teams, because it's a great way for users to ask people within their organizations how to do things or to see real life examples. I found that people really love to help each other within an organization. And I've also found too that when you use Microsoft Teams for internal user groups, it's great because it's searchable. So if someone has an issue, you can search and probably find, someone can find it again if they run across the same thing. You'll also find that you cultivate experts in different areas. Some people are really just wizards when it comes to building visuals. Some are absolute gurus at DAX or Power Query language. So recognize and support your champions, because they're overall one of the best methods for driving adoption. But still, you might want to think about how you address training as well. Now, again, Microsoft has some really great info out there and self-guided trainings, but you may want to consider instructor trainings as well. At Plant, we do a thing called Dashboard in a Day. And it's great because it focuses around a specific need. For your Power BI admins, maybe they need admin in a day or an admin boot camp with Power BI to help bring them up to speed. Because overall, I found that adoption is a combination between user support and training. So in summary, I really think that when it comes to Power BI deployment, you want to work backwards. Think about how you'll meet your business goals and what does that mean? Is that through specific reports? And then what do you need to bring those all together? Go through what you already have. You might already have some of the stuff there that you need in terms of data sources. Take inventory of that. We talked about data preparation. So increase your data confidence by getting that data cleaned and transformed in a way that users can use it. And empower user productivity through user support, training, and adoption. So thanks for listening to all of this. I know I kind of rushed through it, but does anyone have any questions, thoughts, or comments at this time?
Hey, this is Arlene Gaddy. I love the idea of the hidden design file. That's a really good idea, because I just left a company and I couldn't get anybody to really listen to how I built some reports, or especially the workspace, or how to manage the workspace. The poor company was closed and 2 people are left there to kind of deal with it all. And that was good information, because I wasn't sure where to put information and if they could find it.
Thank you. Yeah, because that's a challenge, right? You build something, it's fantastic, but what if someone else needs to look at it or support it?
Yeah.
Put it in there, because if I have to go somewhere else looking for a document, then oh man, just pray for me. So I found that to be a pretty decent solution. I wanted to show an example, but I would had to redact so much information on what it's connecting to, to make it viable to show here, that it just wasn't worth it. But, putting what it's connected to, why I built it the way it was, anything you need, that people might have questions on. And I just take it from the simple perspective of, if I'm coming in to support this or make enhancements to it, what do I need to know? So thanks for that feedback.
Sure.
Roland, I'm Sashi here from Missouri, St. Louis, and thank you so much for putting this all together for us. And this was really amazing. I really enjoyed it. And I would also like to know, if you could, go through an example and do a kind of short storytelling based on that data that you have. If you could arrange one more meetup, I would love to join.
I would love to, if they'll have me again.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We can definitely, Andy and Andrew and I can work with Roland to maybe schedule an encore. Definitely want to open up other questions, but I want to make sure that Ruki has time to present as well, because I know we got started a little bit late. So if it's okay with everybody, Ruki, if you want to switch over and present, and then if there are any follow-up questions for Roland afterwards, we certainly can do those at the end. So Roland, thank you. Great job. Really appreciate having you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, Ruki, the mic is yours. Thank you.
All right. That was a great presentation, Roland. Thank you. And hello, everyone. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we are.
All right. Okay, so I'll be discussing about how you can integrate your Power BI reports or content into Microsoft Teams. Before I begin, I will just say a little bit about myself. My name is Ruki Collier. I am a Microsoft employee. I have been with Microsoft for over 3 years now. Started as Power BI support engineer and Power BI support escalation engineer later. Now I am customer engineer, data and AI, and also working with Power BI. So from time to time, I do blog about Power BI. This is the link to my blog. And you can find me on LinkedIn as Ruki Collier. That is my full name, by the way. I have to make it short to, save time for all of us that, like people that find my name difficult to pronounce. But yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn as Ruki Collier. So I have few certifications that these are all related to Power BI, by the way. So that is all about me. I'll go right into, since we don't have much time, into the presentation. Like I said, I will be discussing about how you can integrate your Power BI content into Microsoft Teams. Power BI has different ways of sharing and collaborating, as we all may know. content to users. One of the ways is to integrate the content into Microsoft Teams. So we will discuss two main approaches today. That brings me to the agenda, which is Power BI tab in Microsoft Teams and Power BI app in Microsoft Teams. So the Power BI tab, with Power BI tab, you can embed interactive reports in Microsoft Teams channels and chats. The tab helps users to find reports very faster, and they can discuss the data within team channels and chats as well. This option is available in both commercial and national cloud, but it's limited for national clouds. The new Power BI tab is not yet available for government tenants. When you add a Power BI report tab in Microsoft Teams, it automatically creates a tab conversation for you for the report, where members of the teams will be able to interact and chat regarding the report. And to add a report in Microsoft Teams with the Power BI tab, you should have at least a viewer role in the workspace that hosts the reports. You can also get a link preview in Teams by copying the report link right in Power BI service and paste that in the chat. So from that, the members from that channel will be able to access the report right in Microsoft Teams. So next to Power BI app, this is one of the ways you can collaborate also with Power BI in Microsoft Teams. Once you install this app in Microsoft Teams, you'll be able to create, view, and edit dashboard, reports, and apps right in Teams. You can share content through emails or Teams, and you'll be able to see all your tabs you have viewed anywhere in Microsoft Teams. So this option is not currently available in national cloud. It's only available for commercial clouds. But recently, early this November, Microsoft released, make an announcement that this is coming soon to US government cloud as well. So we can start reviewing steps that are available to make it available in the government tenant. There's also an update on a simplified and enhanced Power BI app for Microsoft Teams, which we will discuss today also. That makes using data easy and approachable for everyone, no matter the scale that you have. So let's look at some of the enhanced features that has been added recently. This announcement was made first week in November this month. These are some of the enhanced experiences for Power BI app in Microsoft Teams. There is a simplified navigation experience to help user find report faster. So this option was not available. Now, when you're viewing your reports, and then left navigation, you will no longer see the navigation. It gives you more space to work with your data. And you can also add Power BI goals. If you have worked with Power BI service, there is an option to create a scorecard and goals. This was not available in Teams. Now this has been added, where you can add a Power BI goals scorecard to the tab in the meetings and channel, so your team can focus on what is most important and show measurable impact. They can change the settings of the goals, like the current updates, check in and make those changes. Next is dashboard. You can now share dashboard and guest requests for access notification. You will be able also to ping that reports on the tab channel. That is the first option. And there is a built-in Teams analytics report, also right in Teams. These options are all available right now. So before we go into a quick demo, let's check some of the requirements. Trying to install the Power BI app in Microsoft Teams does not give you, access to the report. The reports, you need to have a Power BI Pro license or premium per user license, or your report needs to be in a premium capacity. With Power BI, no matter how you're sharing, the report needs to be in a premium capacity, workspace for free users to see that report, or you should have a pro license, premium per user. And you have to sign into Power BI service first to activate the license before you'll be able to embed a report in Teams and meet all other requirements. That is, you need to have access to the reports. Like the report is in the premium workspace, you should have access to that report in Power BI service before you'll be able to see it in Microsoft Teams. So let's do a quick demo. I'll go ahead and stop sharing this slide and share my Teams. Okay. So let's start with Power BI tab that is currently available in both commercial and government tenants. So add a Power BI tab. You want to make sure you are selecting Teams. Okay, you have charts, you have Teams. You select Teams. Then on the main screen here, you will see a plus sign right here. You click on this, then you search for Power BI. I have been using it. That is why you are seeing it right here under recent. But in case you did not see it, you have the option to search for Power BI. So I'll just click on this one. And what this does, it gives you all the list of reports, workspaces that you have access to in Power BI service. But before I do this, like I said earlier, you have to sign into Power BI to make sure that you have activated the license. So these are all the workspaces. I'm using my test tenant, all the workspaces that I have access to. You can also see all the apps that you have access to and also shared with me. So you can search for workspace if you have many workspaces. And let me see the workspace. Okay, so I'll be using this workspace. And also you will see this option checked by default. What this does is post immediately you embed this report, it posts a tab for you in the team channel, like the team chat, where members of those channel will be able to see that chat and access the report there instead of coming here. So I'll go ahead and click, choose one report in this workspace and click on save. And I'll leave this one, the default as check. So it has already added this one in the chat. So all members of my team channel will be able to see this report right here. When they click this, it's automatically bring them to this tab. So you can also change the name of the tab, rename it, and I'll just remove this. So this is just like embedding your reports. You know, you can embed report, dashboard, apps, like you see. You can interact with your report just like the way you would in Power BI service. You can also filter these reports and all of those stuff. The other option you can do with Power BI tab is to add a link preview. So I'll just go and open one report. Let me use the same workspace and use one report. Copy the URL. Like if the users want to access this report right in Teams, they can do that without even going to Power BI service. So you can paste that here. So immediately you paste it, you will see this option. This will be available to all those that are members of this team, the team channel that you're using. They'll be able to open the report from the charts, or they can subscribe and all of those. And now this is it for Power BI tab. For Power BI app, how you can install, the first thing you need to do also is to sign in. Everything that applies to the tab for requirements applies to Power BI app as well. So to add that, you use the 3 dots. You will see 3 dots here and look for Power BI app. So mind you, these two are different, right? You have one here, then you have one when you're adding the tab here. So click this one and it will ask you to add. you go ahead and click on Add to install it. So what I'm gonna do, I have to go ahead and ping this to this nav, because if you don't ping this, what will happen if you move away? Like if I go to Teams, this will disappear. So you go ahead and just add it and ping it. So that way it will be there. Even if you move away from there, you still see the tab. It will be easier for just click on it. And this is like you have your Power BI service right in Teams. This is bringing everything that you have access to. All the workspaces, your app, everything. You see, these are all the workspaces that I have access to into Power BI. You can navigate just like the way you can navigate in Power BI service. And at the top here, you see LAN. If you click on this, you will see a learning center that gives you a link to learn about Power BI. When you click this, it will take you to Power BI documentation. And you can also dig into documentation, join a community center from here. Also, you can create a report right from here. I'll go ahead and just create one report. I'll copy this one. You can enter your data or just enter manually or copy and paste. Just go ahead and paste this. All right. I'm using first row as headers. So when you come to this option, you have like 3 different options. You can create a blank report or just data sets. But I'll use the first option. I want this to generate a report for me. So I just click on this one. Okay, so, and while this is generating, you can also see data sets here. Power BI data sets are reports that you create on Power BI desktop, then you publish to the service. When you publish to the service, you have a data set. You can connect to those data sets, share it like a shared data set to other users that can use it to create reports. You can also do that. All right, so this is the report. It automatically creates this report. You can go ahead and save this in the workspace and you access that just like any other reports. I'll just say test. And I'll save that in my workspace, then click save. So that will save your reports for you. You can ping this to a tab or you access this at any later time. So to move out of here, you have a close button right here on the right, click that. Then with Power BI app, you can also view the entire Power BI app in Microsoft. Let's say you just want to view that in Power BI service. You can click on this and it will take you to Power BI service. So now let's take a quick look at some of the new features, simplified navigation that Microsoft has added recently. One of them I was talking about is the navigation right here. If you go to Power BI tab, you will see all the Teams channels will be added here. You don't have any options, to collapse or, to do anything here. It's static. But with Power BI tab, Microsoft has removed that and gives more room for you to work with your data. The only nav you can see right here is it has to do with Power BI. This is the workspace, just like the way you can see you see in Power BI service. You only have this option here where you can select change over to Teams and Power BI and other options. So the other new experience is to be able to create goals in Microsoft Teams like you can in Power BI service. If you click on this, you will see the option to add a new scorecard. I'll just go ahead and add one here. I'll say and I choose a workspace. I'm going to choose the same workspace that I was using. You can also you have the option to create a new workspace. Then if you want to change the sensitivity label, you can change that. Then click on create. You add the description if you want to add a description. I'll just go ahead and click on create. Then that was a scorecard. Then I'll add my goal. Add a value here. For example, I'll just say 20 and 200. You can also change this option so percentage or whatever you want to. I'll just leave it as general. Then you can change this if you have a goal that you want to set. I'll just say on track. You can change the dates. Then I click on save right in Teams. So if a user see this, like a member of the channel can just go ahead. Let's say the current value has changed. They will check in, click on this, and they'll just click on new check-in and make changes here, for example, and click on save. Or if let's say this is at risk for some reason, they click on this and make changes, then click on save. Then any member of that channel will be able to see the history, know who made the changes, when they make the changes, and all the details about the changes. So what you can do, you can also add this scorecard to a tab right here, where the first option, you can add it to a tab. And the next thing you can do, you can share dashboard from right here in Microsoft Teams, just like you can share, you'll be able to share dashboard right in Power BI service also. So let's go ahead and ping this to Power BI tab. I click on this, the same option, and look for the workspace where I added the scorecard. And this is the scorecard. I just click that and add it to the team channel. Then we add a link to the chat windows also. And the last option, we go back to Power BI app. The last option is also right from here. We look at this one, how you can add your data manually. You can also analyze your team's data. Depending on how large your data is, how your activity is, this will take time to generate. Nothing is displaying here because I have not used this account for a while. So you can change the option. You have the 90 days, then you have up to 7 days left. 31, 14, 7 days. So you can choose any option to see your activities that you have in Teams also. This is also a new update. So in general, using app and tab make it very easy to get started with Power BI in Teams. No matter the level of experience, you just need to sign into Power BI service, and everything you can do there, if you're not an admin, you'll be able to do it in Power BI in Microsoft Teams. There are some features also that are not available in Teams, like admin portal. You cannot access that here, but I'll say like 90% of what you can do in Power BI service, you'll be able to do it right here without even navigating to Power BI service. Yeah, so no matter the level of experience, it helps everyone in the organization access the full capabilities of Power BI right here in Microsoft Teams. So that will be it for today. Any question?
No questions. This is Andrew. But a great presentation. And I think it's a kind of clear demonstration of the fact that Power BI and Teams are just better together.
Yep.
Yeah, there is no question from my side as well. So thank you so much for putting the slides as well as doing the demo as well on top. I really liked it.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Very powerful.
Yeah, great job, Ruki. That was wonderful.
Yep. Thank you.
So were there any other questions, either going back to Roland's presentation or what Ruki just presented? It sounds like a no. I'm going to end the recording here. I want to thank everyone for attending this evening. Definitely think we will be having Ruki and Roland back again for some encore presentations. And thank you everyone for those who toughed it out and were able to get through the technical difficulties when we started. I will be getting the recording here posted on YouTube by tomorrow morning. So thanks everyone for attending and have a great evening.